Talk Shoes. Recorded live.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Myth or Logic Radio. My name is Tom Murasso from BornToManifest.com. And today my guest is Victoria Moran. And Victoria's been on our show before. She's a motivational speaker, certified life coach, and author of a bunch of books, including the best-selling Creating a Charmed Life, which has been published in 29 languages and quoted on Celestial Seasonings Teas. And it's got a brand new sequel, Living a Charmed Life. And she's also got a bunch of weight loss books, Fit from Within, Fat, Broke, and Lonely No More, and the newly revised, updated, and re-released classic, The Love-Powered Diet, Eating for Freedom, Health, and Joy. And she's been on Oprah 2 times, and Victoria has written articles for Yoga Journal, Body and Soul, Woman's Day, Mothering, Natural Health, and Ladies' Home Journal. She's got a popular blog out there called Your Charmed Life, and that appears daily on BeliefNet.com. And her work has been noted in publications including the New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, and the Christian Science Monitor, and also in such magazines as Parade, Self, Glamour, 17, Real Simple, Cosmo, and the Oprah magazine. And Victoria maintains a 60-pound weight loss and has been free from the food fix, as she calls it, for 25 years. She's developed expertise in the inner aspects of food, weight, and body image, as well as an extensive background in nutrition and the plant-based diet. She is married and the mother of a young actress, a native of Kansas City, Missouri. Victoria now lives a charmed life in New York City, my favorite city on earth. How are you, Victoria?
Oh, I'm terrific. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me back.
Oh, wow. It's great to have you back. I mean, so now you've been on Oprah twice, and you've been on my show twice. So
yeah,
how cool is
that's
that?
about, well, I started to say that's about all a person could hope for, but we're all metaphysical around here, so that's just the beginning of what a person could hope for.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about your revised and updated and newly re-released Love-Powered Diet. And, you know, right on the cover there's a picture of you, and you're this skinny babe, very babe for all you single guys out there. And you don't look like you were ever overweight.
You know, that is what people always say, but it's so interesting that people who used to be overweight just look thin. Now, I know if you've been very, very overweight, there's some skin that doesn't quite stretch back unless you go get some plastic surgery.
Right.
But, you know, generally speaking, when you're wearing your clothes, you just look normal, which is really a lovely gift. It's not like, you know, the scarlet A that you have to wear around, you know, a sign, formerly obese.
Okay, I was a fatty badge. Okay, I got you. All right, so what's the story there? I mean, I watched the video on YouTube about the history of the book. It's called The Love-Powered Diet, and this is its 3rd life, which is pretty unusual in publishing.
Yeah, I've never heard of it before. I'm sure it's happened, but this book originally, in its first incarnation, came out back in 1992, and I had then been free from the food fix for 6 years. And I wrote from a very fresh perspective because that's pretty new. I mean, I remembered very, very clearly what it was like to buy the candy when I was paying for gas and stick the wrappers under the car seat. You know, that was very still fresh in my memory. And so there was almost an innocence and just a tremendous joy in writing that book. And I really thought that it was like the voice in the wilderness, that people would buy it by the millions and, get well and live happily ever after. And some people did find it, and some people loved it. I've got wonderful, wonderful mail. But, it didn't sell millions. It went out of print. And then in 1997, it came back. An imprint of Rodale brought it out with a different title. They changed the title to Love Yourself Thin, revised, updated. And then, of course, I had a few more years. But what is so cool this time is when the Love Powered Diet comes back again, which is going to be in about 3 days, it's going to be officially published, I have over 25 years. Now, statistically, anybody who loses 25 pounds or more has a 2% likelihood of keeping it off after 7 years. It's a high recidivism rate. The stats aren't good.
Sure.
And yet, I know that this works because I've seen it in my life for a quarter of a century, and I see it with all kinds of other people. This is a thrilling combination. It really can work for you.
Okay, so what do you know that Kirstie Alley doesn't?
Well, first I know that the problem is not my thighs. I was so dumbfounded listening to her interview on Oprah when she said, well, my real problem is my hips and my thighs. And I thought, Kirstie, as one girl from Kansas to another, your problem is not your thighs. It is much higher up. And I can say that because mine is too. Now, what the people that I'm writing to in the Love Powered Diet are the Kirstie Alleys of this world, not just somebody who's kind of overweight because they eat fast food and they don't like to exercise. Basically, if they just change a little bit how they're eating and they start to exercise, that is going to be a done deal for them, problem solved. But anybody who has used food for emotional reasons, anybody who has lost and gained weight 2 times, 20 times, those are people with serious food issues. And I'm one of those because for the first 32 years of my life, I just nearly killed myself with a fork. I was either binging or dieting all the time. I didn't know there was anything else. So what I would say to Kirstie or anyone like her is the problem is between your ears. It's also an empty place in your very soul. You fill that up, and then you can apply all of your vast knowledge about food and nutrition, because anybody who's ever been on a diet, anybody who's ever lost and gained weight could do one of these imitation of a nutritionist thing. You hear people sometimes they pretend to be surgeons. But we could all pretend to be dietitians because we are so intelligent. We have read so much. We have studied so much. We know about food. But food is not the problem. If it were, we'd be fine.
Okay. Well, you talk about this empty hole inside in a lot of your books.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What do you?
Well, Blaise Pascal called it the empty hole in every man that only God can fill. And I think he described it pretty well. We come to this life with this yearning. Something is not quite right. And that's the way it's supposed to be, because that's what gives us our desire to find meaning in life. But we can pervert that whole thing so that instead of finding meaning and making the hole smaller, we try to fill it with so much of the wrong stuff. And that can be food, it can be using money in weird ways, using sex in unhelpful ways, whatever it is, drugs, alcohol. We think it's going to fill it, and temporarily it does. And that's what's so cunning about the whole thing. Because just after you've had a nice big meal and maybe a couple of desserts, and you know that the refrigerator is right there, and if you need to go and have a mashed potato liaison in the middle of the night, you could just do that. There's a certain peace about that. There's a certain like, oh yeah, I'm okay. But then it starts to wear off very, very quickly. And then you've got to keep filling it. And then along comes all the guilt of, oh, look at me, I've done it again, and I'm so fat, and I'm so awful, and where's my willpower? Well, I'll tell you where your willpower is. You don't have any anymore. And that's fine. You don't need it. Willpower is overrated anyway. What you need is a connection to a higher power that bypasses the willpower and lets you live sanely a day at a time.
I like that. I like the way it sounds. So what are we filling the hole up with?
Well, what we need to be filling it up with is spiritual substance. And that's not just believing something or other. In fact, it doesn't really matter what you believe. This is not a theological issue. This is a spiritual issue. Anybody who's a compulsive overeater is off balance physically, obviously, from the way we've eaten. And this is true whether a person is morbidly obese, slightly overweight, or of normal size. You know, a lot of people are just crazy about food, but they either periodically diet or they're bulimic or they're whatever, and they look just fine, but they are just as sick as all get out. So there's a physical illness. There's also a mental illness. We have all of these ideas, like Kirstie Alley saying, my problem is my thighs. I think she really believes that. So we have all these ideas of if I could just get the right diet, then I'd be okay. If I could just get motivated to exercise, if I just had money, if I were like Oprah, if I could have a chef and if I could have a trainer, I'd be good. Well, Oprah has a chef and a trainer, and, you know, this is still periodically a problem.
Right.
So what I have found is that we have to treat this on all three levels, and we have to treat it as the addiction that it is. If you were a drug addict, if you were an alcoholic, and you really wanted to get over it, what would you do? If you're a food addict, do the same thing.
So I tell you, you know, I bet you there's somebody listening right now, and they're sitting there enjoying the show, but they're binging on ice cream and pizza, and they got their Diet Coke. Of course, it's got to be diet. And listening, what should this person do right now? Right this second.
Well, keep listening, and you know, you don't have to do this thing right now of, okay, I'm going to throw this pizza in the trash. I mean, if you're genuinely motivated to do that, that's fine. But I threw a lot of pizzas in the trash, and then I just ordered another one. So what you need to do is come to the realization, this is not some little cosmetic thing. This is not about food. This is a serious problem. This is a serious addiction. Not only will this kill me physically, and I think we have a hard time really believing that our eating will kill us physically, even though it will, this is killing you spiritually right now. If you're miserable, you deserve better. So right this very minute, come to grips. This is serious, and I can't do a darn thing about it. Because you've done everything. You've been to the doctor, you've been to the gym, you've been to the Weight Watchers, you've been to the Jenny Craig. Okay, what now? You say, gosh, I think my regular ego self is completely powerless over this thing. So what am I going to do? Well, same thing that an alcoholic would do. You're going to find a way to recover. Now, I am a giant fan of the 12-step program, and for this particular addiction, Overeaters Anonymous, simply because it's so clear, it's so pure, it's so to the point, and it's a bunch of other people who have your exact same addiction, and you can't lie to them. You can't put anything over on them. I could say to somebody who doesn't have this problem, oh, well, you know, I've gained a few pounds because I'm a little bit older. Oh, for heaven's sakes. If I gain a few pounds, it is because I let go of my spiritual condition and I turned to the food. I went back to my drug of choice. So I can lie to the rest of the world. I can't, as they say in the program, you can't bullshit another bullshitter. So you get a program of recovery, a way through the thing, and you get the companionship of people who won't let you lie to yourself.
So you're a big fan of Overeaters Anonymous.
I'm a major fan, and I'm sure that there are other ways to do this. I mean, I'm absolutely positive that in the vastness of God's universe, that people are having spiritual experiences in all kinds of ways, and they're turning their back on every sort of addiction that there is. This just happens to be a very efficient, readily available way. Anybody's welcome. You don't have to be overweight, and you can't be too overweight. It doesn't matter. They don't weigh you. They don't care. And it doesn't even cost anything. You know, they pass around a basket put $1 or $2 in to help pay for the rent in the hospital basement or the church rectory or wherever they're having the meeting.
Yes.
It's just a very simple way to save your life. So I do recommend that. And in